Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're here today with Julie Maxland. Julie is the author of a new book titled Financial Literacy for Young Adults, the ultimate guide to mastering money, budgeting, and smart financial habits for any career path. Julie holds an MBA and brings a wealth of experience working with individuals, small businesses, large corporations, and startups. As a recognized daily money manager, she helps clients stay on top of their finances through budgeting, bill management, and financial organization. A proud New Englander, Julie draws inspiration from the region's rich history and charm. When not writing, she can be found exploring scenic trails and countryside on two wheels, a passion that has led her and her family on unforgettable biking adventures across the United States and Europe. Julie and I also worked together when she served as an HR consultant to a small company I was with. You can find her book on Amazon. So Julie, it's so wonderful to see you again, and many congratulations on your new book.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
Appreciate
didn't
it.
know you were doing that kind of work, so I was really, thrilled when I found out that you had taken the time. And I know by working with all these authors how much time it takes to pull together a book.
Yeah, it was something that I wanted to do. It filled up some spare time that I had, and I had a blast. I have to say, I had a lot of fun doing it.
So before we get into the book, though, you've had a very varied and exceptional kind of career. Can you share a little bit more about some of the various different places that you've worked?
Sure. I'll do it backwards. As you mentioned, I'm what's called a daily money manager, and I have a small business. I've had that probably for about maybe 8 years, where I go to people's homes, mostly the elderly, and I help them take care of their financial affairs. So pay their bills, make sure their insurance is done, gather their tax documents. I think of it as a financial housekeeper, keeping everything neat and tidy. Before that, you and I worked together at a small company with guys doing HR. I've done HR for larger companies, and before that I did IT for Goldman Sachs, and I also worked in banks. So I have done a lot. I've done quite a few things.
Oh, I know. It's just I was always impressed with your versatility, to be able to play many different roles. So that's very cool. And I love what you're doing now to help people.
Yeah,
It's just so outstanding.
yeah. It's very rewarding.
So, one of the businesses that I run is called Find Your Next Calling, right? So, was you're helping elderly people a calling for you?
Not originally. I was looking for I wanted to start my own business, do my own thing. And then this sort of morphed into doing the daily money manager, and I really hit a spot. And I don't know when I first started if I realized how significant it was going to be for these people. But over time, as they've aged, and most of my clients are elderly. Do have a few younger ones, but how important it was to them. I got a better sense of how difficult aging can be in our very high technology society. During COVID, it was very difficult for them. And having somebody that they knew was going to stop by every day, and not every day, stop by once a week and resolve their problems, it really was a blessing to them.
Yes.
One of my clients said, "Julie, apart from my doctor, you're the most important person in my life." And I think he meant it.
Well, one of the things that I've learned more and more deeply over time is the importance of trust.
Mm,
And boy, aren't you exemplifying that right now? You
yeah,
know, those
yeah,
people are trusting you a bunch, and I can understand why they would,
yeah. Thank
knowing
you.
you that I do. But isn't that a great example of the strength of the power of trust?
Yes, it's sort of interesting. When I start out with clients, I often are working with their children. Their children may hire me, or at least the children are sitting there when I have my initial conversation, and they're very nervous about who is this person and
Sure.
what kind of access are they going to have. And so it takes a little while, but then after a while, it's almost 180 degrees. You're like, oh, leave it up to Julie, leave it up to Julie. She'll do it. I
Well,
never
good for
fail to
you.
convince them at the end that this is a good situation.
Good for you. I'm not surprised at all. So let's talk about your book. As I mentioned, the
Okay.
title is Financial Literacy for Young Adults, the ultimate guide to mastering money. Good, thank you. To mastering
It's
money,
backwards though,
budgeting,
isn't
and
it?
small financial habits for any career path. So how did that come about? How did you decide to write a book?
Well, I sort of wanted to write a book. I'd heard so much about now you can write books very easily. You can sell them on Amazon. You don't have to go through the whole huge effort, I guess, of what book writing books used to be. And I wanted to write about something I knew about. And so I knew about financial literacy. So that's how that came to be.
Wow. Well, you chose an interesting target market, considering that, most of your work is with elderly folks. You chose young adults as the target market for the book. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I have two children that are young adults, and I realized that they know very little. And I was starting to see how young adults and their career paths are much different than when we graduated from college. We graduated from college, we took a job, we thought it would be there for 20, 30 years, and maybe not or whatever, but we didn't have this whole huge opportunities to us, or we didn't think about that anyway. And the typical financial literacy for young adults is very much the same as it is for everybody, kind of cookie cutter. And I don't think that that's quite right for our new young adults that are graduating. I think they want and need something different. So that's why I decided to do it.
Wow, wow. Well, good for you. We'll talk more about the book, here in a minute, but it sounds like it's very practical and very well received, which, I'm not surprised, but I'm really glad that it's so helpful for you.
Thank you.
So I have to go back to the elderly folks, though. I mean, are you talking about a sequel? Are you going to do a version of this for, older folks too, or not?
No, I have some thoughts about what I'm going to do next, and it's more along the lines of a class or a seminar. People that might like my book on the older section would be somebody who maybe had a life change, like somebody who's become a widow, somebody who never had to worry about and all of a sudden has to. That might work, but for the most of my clients, quite frankly, they don't want to get involved in anything financial. They want somebody else to handle it. They want to manage their life. That's the stage they're in right now. They want things to be smooth. They don't want any problems. And as long as they trust their various advisors, they're not going to look at a book like this. But if you have an emergency and need to understand something, then that might be applicable. But for the most part, I think it's young adults and people who just are starting into understanding. Maybe they have a little money now. They've been working for a while, have a little money, and are trying to figure out what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. So what are the different sections of the book? How did you organize it?
It's broken into three parts. The first part is very traditional financial literacy. So it goes into budgeting, debt, taxes, net worth, very, very straightforward, easy, nothing really complex about it. A lot of definitions so that they understand what this is all about, and recommendations what to do. And then the second part, this is where my book differentiates itself, I think. It's geared towards each of the various career choices that a new graduate might make. So traditional, entrepreneurial, the gig economy, nomad, remote, all of those were not available to us. And there's not a lot of literature out there that helps the students or the kids that have chosen that way to go what to do about finances, because it's mostly directed towards the traditional. So you get a 401k. Well, if you're in the gig economy, you're not going to get a 401k. You know what I mean? It's very, there's different needs for any of those five career paths. So I break it down into the five career paths and I say, okay, here's how you go about, here's what you need to know about taxes. If you're on your own, you got to put money aside for your estimated taxes. Many people don't even know that. So it's broken down into the career paths. And then the third part is okay, you've got your first initial financial direction going. What are you going to do down the road? So it talks about real estate. It talks about staying knowledgeable, continuous learning. It talks about philanthropy. So it's kind of like first stage. The second part is which you're going to do, and then it's the last stage. So that's three parts to the book.
That's amazingly comprehensive.
Thank you.
Very, very, very helpful. I mean, is there any particular takeaways, that you want people to get out of it?
Yeah, I saw you were going to ask me that question, and I thought that's a really interesting question. I would love people to understand you should start right away, but you don't have to do it all right away. But just make it a part of your life, like check into things every month, for example, and just even if you just check your credit card statements every month, just so you get an awareness of where your money is going and why it might be going where you don't think it's going. I did have a young man once that he never ever looked at his bank account. He only had a phone, so he couldn't see it well on his bank account. And he knew he was overdrafting, but didn't quite know. He was spending $1,000 a month on overdraft fees.
Ouch.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So, and he's a perfect example of, not that he's normal. I think most kids don't do that, but he's a perfect example of where if he had just kind of tuned in every month, he would have seen that that was happening. I had to tell him, I'm looking at his bank account and saying, do you realize this? And he's like, oh, no. And he wasn't making a lot of money. So that was killing him.
Oh, ouch. So I'd like to read from a couple of the reviews of the book. This one says, as a parent to three 20-something sons, this gives us a roadmap to help them with decisions on careers, investing, insurance, health benefits, and so much more. As one of them remarked, this is exactly what I needed. So I'm quite impressed by the comprehensive nature of this. How did you do that?
Well, first part, which is almost like definition of financial literacy, defining what investments are, how perhaps to start, what kind of taxes you have, that was pretty straightforward. The second part, which is the career path thing, I had to do a lot more research on and think about what are the questions and what are the issues. So it sort of evolved on its own. As I was going ahead, it just grew and grew and grew until that's what I had.
No, good for you. So here's an excerpt from another review. It says, it covers everything, budgeting, saving, investing, taxes, but with a fresh, modern approach tailored to different career paths, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about, kind of your approach, to putting this together?
Yes. It was certainly influenced by my kids. Neither of my kids chose traditional career paths. One has worked in nonprofit, which is you don't make a lot of money, so you have to be very frugal. And the other one did the van life. So she was rolling around in a van, the nomad life. And I realized there was just a lot of things that they didn't know that they should know. For example, my daughter that's in the nomad life is, how do you get health insurance? You don't have an address. Or do you pay state taxes when you don't live in a state? There's all these questions that they just sort of like get through life and don't think about it. And there are answers to those things. Surprisingly, that's what I had to do my research on. And so they were really good at influencing my direction. Then I realized not only do you have the nomad life, you have the remote life. So you live in Mexico while you do your job and then you come home. But again, it goes back to how do you pay your taxes? How do you pay your estimated taxes? How do you get mail? There's a lot of complexities to these choices. Sure. And so they helped me because I saw some of their friends doing the same thing too. It wasn't just the two of them, but a lot of their friends are opening their own businesses. There's a lot of entrepreneurship going on right now.
That's
The climate is really ripe for that at the moment. Well, I shouldn't say at the moment, but it was ripe. We'll see how that goes.
yeah, exactly. Wow. So when I help authors with their marketing, one of the things I ask them to do is put together an elevator pitch, just like any,
Yeah.
business, sales, kind of endeavor. So what's the elevator pitch for your book?
I would say if you have a daughter, son, or somebody that you know that is starting out in the real world after graduation, and maybe don't know a lot about finances, this is a good book for them, particularly if they're not doing the traditional career path and don't really know how to go about starting a company, or not that there's a lot in there for that, but there's some startup issues. This would be good for them.
So, as you know, like we have quite a few authors in our audience, particularly early stage authors. What advice do you have for someone who hasn't yet done their first book?
I would say do a little each day. I did find if I put something down for a few days, it was that much harder to get up and get going. You kind of have to remind yourself where you were at, what you were doing, and you lose the thread. So even if you only do a paragraph because you have a busy day, something every day. If you can do an hour every day, that's going to get you that much further. For me, rather than thinking, oh, I'm free on Thursday where I'll do 5 hours, Thursday got crammed with other things, so I wouldn't get to it. And then I think, oh, I didn't get it done. So a little each day would be my advice.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, different folks seem to have different answers to that,
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, yeah. Some of them, like to go away for a weekend, you
Oh,
know,
really? Yeah.
yeah, and just write, kind of a
Yeah.
thing, and then put it on the shelf for however long.
Oh, that would not work for me, but we're all different, right?
That's the thing. I think the content has some, the type of book, the genre of the
Yeah.
book has
Yeah.
some influence on that as well as, like you said, just personal like
Right. Well,
inclination.
my book is somewhat like writing a term paper. You've got these topics that you're going to cover, and
Yeah,
it was very sequential.
yeah,
So it's not like I had to think about a plot or have my imagination. It was really just doing it.
right, right. Yeah, I think as we said, the type of the book matters a lot
Yeah.
is kind of
Yeah.
the question.
Right.
So you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I mean, what about the future? It sounds like you have some ideas for potential other books.
Yeah, I'm not sure about a book, but I think what I'd like to do next is, and I'm not sure I can articulate it quite yet, but do seminars for people on how to, maybe it's decluttering the finances, but it's also geared towards people who perhaps are taking care of their parents' finances. Or I think of the widow who didn't know anything about it and needs help in starting understanding what she's doing. I've done this so many times, I kind of have it down pat what you have to do, whether it's any of those three things, whether you're all of a sudden taking care of your parents from afar, let's say, that's hard. Or even if you're so busy, you can't do it very well yourself, and it's always crazy, you're running around trying to get stuff done. So I was thinking about doing a seminar on that, and I've done something like that before, and it was very well received. I have to kind of figure out who that market is or
Mhm.
how to market it, how to say, you might not quite know what this is, but I think you'll find it valuable. The steps that I take, for example, with a new client is I first audit. I check to see everything they have, all their bank accounts, their bills, their insurance, and make sure they have everything, which surprisingly sometimes, many times I find out that they don't. Something has gone away. They used to pay their home insurance and it went away, for example. I audit and then I document it and then I automate it and then I monitor it. So it's very defined and very sequential. And I think there's people out there who would benefit from it. I don't know if it's a huge number of people, whatever. So I'd like to do a seminar on that to help people do that.
I mean, certainly since, COVID, I have done a ton of things on Zoom, courses and um, conferences and all that kind of thing, which is great, for people to be able to attend from wherever.
Yeah,
Uh, I think the biggest challenge in your case will be finding the audience.
right, right.
Everyone's so inundated with advertising on social media and, every other form of communication, just rising above the noise to make people aware of what you're doing and
Yeah,
how it benefit them. That will probably be the biggest challenge.
right. I absolutely think it is. It's one of those things when I tell people what I do, they go, that is great. I really need something like that. Boy, my parent needs that or so and so. But that doesn't necessarily translate to them wanting to come to a seminar. Yeah. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
So we'll see
Julie,
where it goes. We'll see where it goes with that.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on, all of your work and your book, and I'm really glad to see it. Again, the title of the book is Financial Literacy for Young Adults, The Ultimate Guide to Mastering Money, Budgeting, and Smart Financial Habits for Any Career Path. And you can go to Amazon and find it. Julie, thanks again, and best
Thank you,
wishes.
Brian. It's been great.